And have you opened in the United States? At any point were you able to open?
Yeah, I mean, just to reflect on what you just said, and that's true. Like here, it's mostly about micro-franchising, although we have examples of brands that are a bit bigger. For example, like from Croatia, we also have a Museum of Illusions as a great franchise.
You also have the Museum of Chocolate. I was just there last month.
Yes, lots of museums.
Franchised. Who would have thought? You got two franchise museums out of Croatia. Who would have thought it?
Welcome to the Franchise Hot Seat Podcast, where we talk about all things franchising. Now, here's your host, Dr. John P. Hayes.
Andy Colak is my guest today, all the way from Croatia. Entrepreneur, franchisor. In fact, you were referred to by the media, Andy, as the new hope of Croatian entrepreneurship. Welcome to my Franchise Hot Seat podcast, and pick it up from there. Why do they call you the new hope of Croatian entrepreneurship?
Well, thank you first of all for having me, and thank you for the kind words and the introduction. Well, basically we were kind of like pioneers of franchising in Croatia, and I've been entrepreneur pretty much for all of my career for the past 20 plus years. And out of that, I've been in franchising for the past 15 years. And, I always like to start things from scratch and to bootstrap. And this is what happened with the brand that we built back in 2009. It's called Surf and Fries, and we sell French fries, simple as that. And when we opened our first shop, it became, unbelievably popular, I would say, kind of out of the charts. We did like 1,000 transactions per day on average with our first shop. And that kind of resulted in other people being very interested and just wanted to be a part of it. And this is where I kind of clicked, okay, maybe we should actually franchise this thing.
Okay.
And
let's go back before franchising, because you didn't start out in franchising, right? You started as an entrepreneur when you were 22 years old, maybe right out of studying marketing at the university. Talk about that for a moment.
Yeah, that's true. I was lucky enough to actually get my education in Canada. So I was studying marketing in Vancouver, BC. And just before that, I actually worked for a year as a real estate agent in Croatia. Very young, obviously. And I kind of like that business because it's kind of success fee based and you make money how good you are. And when I got to college, I actually saw what you call a real estate guide. We were talking about 2002, and I was amazed because we didn't have that in Croatia. We had simple classified ads, but no photos or anything like that. Honestly, I finished my first semester and I went back to Croatia, and the first company that started publishing the real estate guide based what I saw in Canada and what inspired me to do. And for the first years, I was actually traveling back and forward between college and Croatia. So we set up a company, Dennis, which is my business partner, and I. So he stayed here, and I was pretty much doing every case study I could on college with my actual company in Croatia. Yeah. And it turned out to be quite success. We managed to build a company basically from scratch to a point where we were hiring 12 employees, and we really did a beautiful publication that kind of changed the way people can present real estate on the market that is for sale. And in 2008, we managed to do the exit, which is another great experience that I had, always a good feeling. So that was my kind of beginning of being entrepreneur. And I pretty much loved every step of the way, although sometimes it can be hard, obviously, that's how it is. But at the end, it's very rewarding, I would say.
So the real estate publication, was that your first venture as an entrepreneur? And you succeeded, you didn't just succeed a little bit, you hit a big home run in about 6 or 7 years' time when you got a great exit financially from that company. Did you have any failures, as most entrepreneurs do?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I started really well, as you said, and then because after that we started the surf and fries, which went up like crazy. And there was a big lesson that I learned, what was it, 2012, because I thought anything that I touch will turn into gold.
You were the new hope of Croatian entrepreneurship. So
Yeah, exactly. However, I mean, that's not how things go. I also was on the verge of bankruptcy, because the markets changed. We had a big financial crisis here as well. It came a bit later than when it started in the US. Then, you get the competition on the market. You make some wrong moves because, I don't know, maybe you believe too much that whatever you do will be perfect. And then you have to pay the price for that. So that's how it is.
yeah. So you begin Surf and Fries, and very quickly, and you started in Rijeka, close, right? Rijaeka in Croatia. That's where you started. And that first year, you didn't put McDonald's out of the fries business, but McDonald's suffered about a 50% loss in their fries as a result of your one unit in that city. Talk about that for a moment.
Well, yeah, that was true. I think it was even more than 50%. I mean, we opened the doors of the store and then, okay, let's see what happens. And luckily, I started marketing, as I mentioned, and I started doing this promotion. And we started getting first customers into the store. And it turned out that they really love the product. But it's not only about the product, because I always say, like, it's not about what you sell, but how you sell it. So for us, it was more about the idea of the packaging that we created with the brand that people really loved. I can show you if you like. So this is what we did. It's like a cone shape, right? Mm-hmm. And what we wanted to do is to kind of make a solution for the dips. So we made this thing here. So you can hold the cups for the dip, so you can dip your fries. And then if you like a drink, then we can have a cup here. And then if you like some protein items, then we can also add this part here. So you can have some chicken with it, or maybe calamari or something like that. So people got quite amazed with this thing. So it was very practical. But on top of that, something that we didn't think about, this became a great promotion vehicle. Because the customers walking out of the store, it was very small store, like 300 square feet. So there's no sitting places or anything like that.
Yeah.
So they were walking down the street, consuming the product, and then other people see this, and it's basically your customers become walking billboards. And that brings more customers to the store. So that was the trick about the concept, and I think that's the main reason why it became so popular.
Mm-hmm. And then that led to your slogan, walk and eat, repeat.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So it's a whole meal that somebody is carrying in their hand, including the drink and the protein and the dips for the fries. Amazing concept. How'd that happen? Did you dream it up? Did you see it someplace else or something similar?
No, we actually kind of went step by step. We know the traditional way of serving fries is it's usually like a paper cone, and then you get the fries, and then you get like in Europe we get mayo on top. You guys like ketchup more?
You're right.
So we wanted to solve the problem pretty much, because the top fries would have lots of mayo or some kind of sauce, and then the bottom ones didn't have anything. So we were like thinking, okay, how do we solve this problem? We need some kind of solution. And then we came up with this. Honestly, it took us about, I think, 8 months till we actually found this. I would say the solution in terms of how to do it out of the paper and so on. And then when we started serving it, the first version actually didn't have this, what we call a drink ring, because then we saw customers taking this cone, and then in the other hand, they would have the cup, and then they couldn't eat. So it's okay, we got to do something quickly. So we added this part. And then, they started asking, do you have some chicken with it or something like that? So we figured, okay, we need to add something like that. So it's more like an evolution that happens. So you kind of listen to the customers and, react really fast. Okay, make it better. That's how it went.
So a good lesson in listening to what your customer wants And
Yeah.
they clearly told you, made your marketing a whole lot easier.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you always need to listen to your customers. On the other hand, not only customers, but also franchisees. It's kind of very similar because when we did this concept, the first store, it was like a street front, right? But then we had people coming up to us and said like, hey, we would like to be a part of your brand, but how can we do this on a beach? Because Croatia is a tourist destination. We have beautiful beaches on Adriatic coast and so on. And we thought like, okay, but do you have a location? And they would say like, well, no, but can you make something like a cart or something that we can use? So we started working on a cart. And today that's one of our most successful formats that we offer as a brand.
I want to jump right to that point. It says that you have more than 40 surf and turf locations. How many are brick and mortar? How many are trucks? And how many are carts?
Well, 80% of them are actually what we call mobile units, either a cart or like a food truck or something like that.
Yeah.
And 20% are brick and mortar. We figured out that the product itself, it fits the best on a certain locations, which are most usually like sporting venues, like stadiums, or beaches, or music festivals, street food festivals, something down that line. And this is where people actually appreciate where they can, walk and eat. While when you have a brick and mortar store, or we tried, for example, food courts in shopping malls and so on, it's a completely different situation where they want to sit and eat. And then this thing doesn't actually make a lot of sense. As we gained more experience, then we figured, okay, let's focus on franchisees that can actually operate on those type of events, in those type of venues, and so on.
Mm-hmm. So what about sales? If I'm going to buy a surf and fries and I'm looking at, I could do brick and mortar or I could do a cart, but I want to make sure I'm going to maximize my earnings. Do I need to do the brick and mortar in that case, or is a cart very profitable as well? Can I do as many sales out of a cart as I would do out of brick and mortar, and maybe at lower cost?
Well, yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. And we have it a bit different than most of the brands. So we actually prefer the carts and the food trucks, the mobile unit, because we noticed that, location is one of the crucial things if you want to be successful in this business. And with mobile units, even if you get the wrong location at the beginning, you can always find the right type of location and just continue with the business. While with a brick and mortar, if you get the wrong location, I mean, it's really tough then.
You're stuck.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we actually have a rule for the new franchisees, for example, when we open a new market, that they need to start with the mobile unit first so that they learn how to operate the business, so that they create like a fun-based clients that get to know with the brand. And only after a year or two, they can start thinking about the brick and mortar shop. Then they have enough experience to choose the right location and so on.
Yeah. So I'm not a franchise broker. I do not sell franchises. I'm a franchise educator. But I still want to ask you, if I were to open a mobile surf and fries, what's my investment going to be to do that?
Yeah, for our basic, like a surf and fries, what we call cart, it would be around 20,000 euros. That's very close to US dollars.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Some of our franchisees, you also mentioned the revenues. The average transaction would be about $6 or $7. And some of our franchisees, for example, in Croatia, during the tourist season, on a good location on a beach, they do like 350, 450 transactions per day. Mm-hmm. That kind of gives you an idea that, the return on investment, it's very nice
Yeah.
in terms of franchisee. And yeah, definitely, I would say I would rather have 2 or 3 carts operating than one big brick and mortar.
Yeah. So every year, the International Franchise Association, which is the granddaddy of franchise associations worldwide, based in Washington, D.C., at their convention every year, they honor next-gen franchisors. And you won that. It'll be 2 years, I guess, coming up. 2022, did you win it?
It was 2015, so we were the first generation of next gen.
Oh, okay. That long ago. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, and that year you needed to be younger than 35 as a franchisor.
A next gen.
Yeah, exactly. And that was a big surprise for us and a really amazing experience. It was my first time to be on a IFA. It was in Vegas that year. Yeah. And I remember because I was at the office 2014 and it was just before Christmas. And I was actually scrolling through my email and I don't know why I clicked on, like you have a spam folder.
Yes.
And I was like scrolling, and it was like, you won? And I was like, yeah, again, it's like another spam. And then IFA, and I was like, you won IFA, what? And then I clicked, and it's like, congratulations, you're welcome to join us for the IFA. You won the next gen, and so.
Yeah, that was amazing. That's a big deal for young people to win that. How old were you in 2015?
So I was 34.
Okay, you were right under the cutoff. And then at the time, I'm sure you were dreaming about everybody's secret in franchisors, it seems, is we've got to open in the USA. So you go win an award like that, and at the IFA convention where there can be 2,500 to 4,000 people or more, you've got some big, heavy hitters there. Private equity players are there, other franchisors, food franchisors who might say that would fit into our series of brands or our collection of brands. Did you get lots of offers? Did you get interest? Did you get people who wanted to bring you to the United States?
Well, yeah, I mean, we got a lot of interest, to be honest, and I talked to a lot of people. But I guess in 2015, it was a bit maybe too early even for us, although we were very eager to get to the US.
Yeah.
And with all the markets that we operate, honestly, US, it's the most important one and the biggest potential and so on. But on the other hand, you really need to be careful and you need to be ready to launch in the US. Yeah, but then we learned that, you need to have FDD. It would be good to have your own unit in the US that has traction, for item 19 and so on and so on. So it only happened a bit later or in a bit different scenario.
Yeah. So I want to come back to that in a moment. But right now, as I understand, you're in about 15 countries or more, mostly throughout Europe, also Hanoi, Vietnam. And I saw you're in the Middle East. You're in my favorite city, Kuwait City, where I lived for 7 years and taught at Gulf University there, loved it. And I'm sure the Kuwaitis' sales are probably very high in your Kuwaiti stores. Do you have a master licensee there, or is it an individual owner?
Yeah, so it's a master deal, and yeah, I agree with you with Kuwait. It's a beautiful country, great people, and it's funny because the average ticket in Kuwait is way above anything else. And yeah, I mean, honestly, we didn't grow the brand by the book in terms of expanding from where you are, but because again, I'm saying we were really pioneers, so we were jumping from the market to the market. We launched, Vietnam, South African Republic, Middle East. We even had a pop-up store in India. Then we had 2 stores in Santiago, Chile, and then Germany, Ireland, UK, and so on.
Yeah. So let's go back to the United States. What's the problem for developing a Croatian-based franchise company and bringing that to the United States? That's not easy to do for a whole lot of reasons, all of which you have probably discovered. So tell us, what are some of these challenges that any franchisor, and there are a lot of them in Croatia who I met in this past year, who want to bring their concepts into the United States. You probably know Fish Delish, which I think is an amazing concept. He's doing very well. Stefano, who's building that, planning now to make his entry into the United States. There are some others as well that are not food businesses. I don't know if you've tried Curry Bowl in Zagreb, but that fellow from Sri Lanka, Brian, amazing food. And his little concept there, I'm not a fan of curry particularly. And he said to me, well, don't worry, because our non-curry dish is the number one selling dish that we have. It was beautiful and tasty. So there's another one. I know that he would love to come to the United States. This is not easy to do. This is the most regulated country in the world for franchising. It's also very costly. The way we sell franchises is different than what you do in Croatia, in other parts of Europe. But you tell us, what were the problems you ran into, and how maybe have you executed on getting rid of those problems?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is a great subject because I think it can really help a lot of international brands, not only Croatian, on the idea of, hey, what actually happens when you try to enter the US market as a brand from abroad. And, well, what happens is that, as you mentioned, US is, from our perspective, extremely regulated. We don't run into any of those. We got into about 20 countries so far, and as a brand, and nobody is even close in terms of regulation. And that regulation associates cost with it, so that's the first step. And, you obviously need to have your FDD done, and then you need state registration and all of that. So in order to do the FDD, you need a good lawyer, and then, you need to do the IP, and then maybe you need a consultant, and, that just adds up. Before you even started, the entry barrier, it's extremely high. But that's not all, because I think the biggest challenge is when you want to sell a franchise in the US, it's very hard to do that unless you actually have an operating unit in the US. So if you really want to do it the right way, my conclusion came after the experience that I got. Okay, you got to find a way to open your own directly owned unit in the US, operate for a year or two, get some good traction on it, and then start working on the, all the FDD and everything else so that you can start franchising. But in order to do that, you need to understand how the US market works. What are the right type of locations, which state, which city. Basically, you would need to move to the US for a while to set that everything up. I mean, it's really challenging to bring a brand to the US, at least from my perspective and my experience. And something that we are not used to, it's having so many options. In the US, we learned that, whoever you talk to, somebody always has some kind of solution to offer. Over here, there's not that many choices, not that many solutions. So when you come to the US, you need to make choices, and you're not sure how to do the right ones.
Yes. So the Croatian Franchise Association gave me some data recently that just 3 years ago, there were 19 indigenous franchise brands in Croatia. That would include your brand. Now there are 72, which is very impressive, but there are only about 250 franchise brands in the country, according to the Croatian Franchise Association. So as you're pointing out, you don't have as much opportunity. And also, one of the things that I discovered, and you fall under this as well, it's sort of a micro franchise society where the fees, total fees, are well under $50,000. You said I can open one of your units, Surf and Fries, for about $20,000 a cart. I don't know if I could do that in the United States, but I could do that in Europe or in the Middle East, perhaps. So you're going to pay, coming in the United States, just begin with the $20,000 and up. Once you get an attorney, a disclosure document, depending on how many states, will cost you between $25,000 and $60,000 just to have that developed. Your costs are very, very high for entry into this country to franchise. Meanwhile, and have you opened in the United States? At any point were you able to open?
Yeah, I mean, just to reflect on what you just said, and that's true. Like here, it's mostly about micro franchising. Although we have examples of brands that are a bit bigger. For example, like from Croatia, we also have Museum of Illusions as a
Exactly.
great franchise.
You also have the Museum of Chocolate. I was just there last month.
Yes, lots of museums.
Franchised. Who would have thought? You got two franchise museums out of Croatia. Who would have thought it?
Exactly. And by the way, it's funny, you see like from micro franchising to, for example, a Museum of Illusions where investment would be, I think, around 1 million.
Yes.
So and then also with the Museum of Illusions, another interesting thing is that they got private equity fund that invested. So I think that's a great example, and I think we need more of those.
CarWiz is another major auto rental based out of Croatia.
Absolutely.
400 units now.
Amazing global presence, and I would say in an industry where you would not expect somebody to do a success of that size.
Yeah.
So I mean, obviously we do have a lot, but most of them are still kind of micro franchising. One of the reasons for that most probably is also that in Croatia it's hard to get financing, so you need to adjust to the market. So your franchisees, we don't have like SBA loans or anything like that. It's not only Croatia, it's most of the Europe, it's like that. Mm-hmm. So when you don't have a solution for franchising, then it's hard to get hard cold cash in hundreds of thousands. So you need to think about smaller amounts.
Right. And people are very entrepreneurial in Croatia, which I did not expect. I don't think, most people probably don't even know where Croatia is or think much about the level of entrepreneurship or franchising in the country. It's just amazing when you spend time there. I met the founder of Speak Crow. Now she has, I think, since I've been there, she added 2 more franchises. So she's up to maybe 9 franchise locations, and they teach you how to speak Croatian. Now, a lot of people probably say, but who wants to speak Croatian? Everybody in Croatia wants to speak English. Well, as the franchisor, the young lady who created that brand said to me, most of the people who want to speak Croatian live in the United States. Those are our students, our clients. Either they are Croatian, but they moved out of Croatia long ago and they want to come back, which frequently happens, or they're married to a Croatian. They want to know how to speak the language, or any number of other reasons. And she has no franchise fee. You only pay royalties once you join her franchise. So Croatia's environment, you've created opportunities for people at very reasonable entry fees. And of course, you don't have the kind of legislation and disclosure that we have. You don't have, I believe there's the start of the broker system or the franchise consultant / broker who, if the franchise fee is $50,000, they may get the whole $50,000, or they may get at least half of that fee. You don't have that happening in Croatia.
No,
it's easier for people.
Yeah, it's much easier. Everything is more direct, I would say. So there's not that much middleman. So there's no associated cost with that, because that brings the cost up, right? Yeah, on the other hand, I guess there's the other side, because maybe if there were more franchise brokers, there would be easier to sell. But I'm not sure, because it's such a small market. I mean, Croatia is like 4 million people. Right. It's a small pond. Yeah, I agree. And thank you for saying that, because sometimes also regarding the Croatian entrepreneurship and, thinking out of the box and things like that, sometimes it even amazes me, because lately for the past 3 or 4 years, we've been seeing concepts that are really out of the box, from museums all the way to we also have one of our biggest taxi services is also a franchise. Review system for hotels, fast review, also another concept, also Croatian. They just opened Saudi market as well. So things like that. I mean, it's amazing to see what it is. But I guess when you're in a small country, you need to be really creative because you need to think outside of the box and on international level. Because you can grow only so much within 4 million as a population, right? So right from the get-go, you need to think, okay, how do we do a concept that would actually resonate with Europe or the rest of the world? So yeah, it's interesting to see what the things that we got here.
Yeah. And nice people and good food and beautiful country. So all of that, people should go to Croatia. I'm not studying Croatian, but I do plan to go back, as I have a loose affiliation with the Zagreb School of Economics and Management. And I'm going to actually teach an online course in franchising for that university, students at ZISEM, in the spring of 2025, next semester. So I'm going to help produce some educated young people who you might want to hire because they're going to know about franchising. In addition to that ZISEM attracts young people from all over the world, including the United States, young men and women who are studying at ZISEM, and they'll have franchise expertise. That's the kind of student you could hire and groom and send back to the United States to help you open your units. This could be an opportunity for you and other franchisors to affiliate with ZISEM and develop, as we have done here in the United States at the Titus Center for Franchising. I have about 125 franchise professionals who participate on my advisory board. And these are franchisors and franchisees and suppliers, franchisors who want to sell franchises to my students. So far, 10 of my graduates are franchisees, but mostly they want to hire and they want to mentor these young people and bring them into franchising, because who knows anything about franchising? Few people do. What did you know, Andy, about franchising when you started your business? Did you start it thinking, okay, Surf and Fries is going to be like McDonald's or like Subway in no time? Was that the idea, or was franchising not even part of it?
No, when we started the business, we had no idea that it will be a franchise. Neither did we knew anything about franchising. However, as I mentioned, when we got all those people coming to our store and asking, hey, can we do a JV so that we open, in our hometown, this same concept, oh, can you sell me the formula and things like that.
Yeah.
That's where I concluded, okay, it's got to be franchising. It cannot be this. And I better act fast, because these guys might be my competition tomorrow with the knockoffs. It's better to make them franchisees. But how to do that? And as you mentioned, honestly, we had nobody to talk to pretty much. There was Liliana and pretty much nobody else. Look, to be honest, what I did, I went to Amazon and I ordered books, how to franchise, how not to franchise. Then you start reading, entry fee, royalty fee, marketing fee. That's how you figure it out.
Yeah. And so when you started as a franchise, did you go to a franchise attorney to get started, or was that not even necessary starting out in Croatia?
Well, we went to, there's no franchise attorney here today. Now we have actually a few that also specialize in that, but back in 2009, nobody was there. We went to the best attorney office that we could find, and we said, okay, we need a franchising contract. And they did it for us the best they could. Looking back, oh my God. It was really not good, but we had what we had. So.
But that's similar to the way most people get started in franchising. You didn't study franchising. You didn't work for a franchise company. You had zero experience in franchising. You ordered books off Amazon. I wrote Franchising: The Inside Story. I wrote Start Small, Finish Big, Fred DeLuca's book from Subway. You Can't Teach a Kid to Ride a Bike at a Seminar. That was David Sandler Training franchise. I'm always happy to hear, went to Amazon and bought books on franchising. that's a good way to begin. Going to a seminar, coming to the Titus Center for Franchising, taking a course at perhaps ZZEM and other universities in Europe that do teach franchising. These would be other ways that people could learn this, but not a lot of opportunity, particularly not when you got started with Surf and Fries.
Yeah, fully agree. And I think what you're doing is really a big thing and a great thing, and it will help a lot of people. To be honest, I mean, okay, it's one thing to read a book, and I fully say, like, read as many books as you can. It's always a plus. However, I think it's much better if you have somebody who can you actually talk to and where you can ask questions and get answers, so it can be more interactive. And because from our experience, we had to go through a lot of trial and error is extremely costly.
Yes.
So if you can avoid as much as possible the trial and error strategy, but to actually do the seminars, do the books, talk to the people, and so on, it's definitely a better way to go.
So if you were doing it again, starting Surf and Fries now, and you knew you wanted to franchise, or you figured it out within a year, hey, we really have to franchise, what would you do differently to launch your franchise network?
Oh, so many things. So definitely we would be much better. I think we would need to be much better prepared in terms of franchise documentation. So back then we didn't understand what the book of standards are, like operations manual, things like that. That's one thing. The other thing, I think we would probably get a better a franchise legal pack, meaning the franchise contracts would be definitely made in a better and a different way. Following on that, I think we would do much better franchisee profiling, because, you know, at the beginning when you start franchising, whoever comes to you, I want to buy franchise, you get excited. Oh, yeah, sure, let's do it, you know. But, you know, then you figure out, okay, he's undercapitalized, he got a wrong location, and he doesn't have time to do this business. And then you have a lot of problems on your hand. So I think those things we would definitely change if we can go back in time.
And would you know, and based on what you know, would you say, well, I've got to find a franchise advisor, whether lawyer, a financial person, consultant who's built franchises or worked in franchise companies? Would that have been important at that beginning stage to have a franchise advisor on your team?
Absolutely, and especially somebody who understands what it's like to build a franchise brand. So I always like to work with people and to consult people with hands-on experience, because then you can relate to them, and then you understand what they're talking to you, and so on. And bottom line, you listen to their advice.
Yeah. So when you won years ago the IFA's Next Gen Award for franchising, I would have imagined that several franchise sales organizations or brokerage firms would have jumped on that immediately and said, Andy, we're your team. We are going to sell 1,000 of your brand. We're going to sell 1,000 units across America in, you know, whatever they might project. Some of them are more grandiose than others. Did you have that kind of experience? Did people want to do a joint venture, take you on for earning the fees, or earning commissions out of sales, or what happened with that?
Yeah, I mean, we had a lot of calls and talks and so on with the franchise brokers, and it's exactly what you said. Oh yeah, we'll do 100 there, 300 there, and we'll do that. Now, you know, it all sounds perfect. But one thing that you need to think about when you do business in the US, that you need to support all those franchisees.
Yes.
So who's going to do that? So this is where you kind of have to, okay, let me think about it, because, you know, if you're building something, build it the right way. It's not only about selling the franchise and then, you know, later you have a bunch of lawsuits on your hands. I think that's one of the very important things, again, going back to the US market, that you definitely plan for your support on how to execute that.
Mm-hmm. Again, you want to avoid the dreaded SNO number, sold not open. Yeah, a brokerage firm, a consulting firm, FSO might go out and require that you buy 3 to 5 units and you've got a lot of units sold, but you don't have those units open because you don't have people on the ground. Even if you are an American-based business, you don't have enough people on the ground to open those units. And that works against you. We have a lot of that happening in the United States today.
Yeah.
And I don't know that all the interest from outside of the United States, if those folks always realize that this is one of the concerns that you have to protect your company or protect your brand against. Because once you get a reputation for selling them, but not opening them and not being successful, that's the beginning of your downfall in the United States.
Fully agree, and I think that's a great point because I just remember that I think back in 2017 or 18, I was actually visiting West Palm Beach, where you are now, and I was actually doing a bit of a market research, and I talked to one franchisee. It was Jupiter. I remember the name because it's so weird of the town, Jupiter. So anyways.
Yes, Jupiter. It's north of West Palm Beach. Yeah. Very comfortable place to live. A lot of money in Jupiter, a lot of development. That would be a good place for you to have a location, one of many in Florida.
Yeah, true. And I was there and I was talking to a guy. He was a franchisee of one brand. Doesn't matter. I don't want to mention brand names, but and I was so I talked to him. So, what's your experience being a franchisee and how does that work and so on? And he told me like, look, I opened this unit here, and it was sold to me by the franchise brokers. And I'm not breaking even, so I'm not cash positive within the 6 months that he's been operating, and they're still pushing me to open 2 or 3 more. So he was in uncomfortable position, which I feel it's not good. I mean, I understand the franchise broker wanting more sales, but that's very short term. In the long term, I don't think it's a good idea to do business that way.
So have you considered Florida, Texas? These are California, which is not easy to franchise in anymore, very costly. But the East Coast, the Carolinas, where there is seasonal population as well as full-time population that would love your product. It seems to me that if I were in your shoes, I would open in Florida first and foremost. It's also not a state registration territory for franchising, so it's a little less expensive. South Florida, where I'm located, from Miami up past Jupiter, as we were talking about, South Florida and Texas are either going to be number one, or one will be number one will be number two in franchise development in the United States. It's been this way for several year after year. Right now, I believe Texas is ahead of South Florida, but next year, South Florida could be there. These are very popular states for franchising. Is that a consideration for you now?
Absolutely, because we feel that, for example, Surf and Fries as a brand would be a perfect fit for Sunbelt states. One of our biggest enemies in terms of our sales is actually rain and cold weather, because people don't walk outside, having this in their hands. I think, Florida would be perfect. I also spent time in Texas, in Dallas, because we did actually launch a version of our brand in the US. So that's where I got my feet wet. Now I know how everything works, but definitely Sunbelt states. I mean, California is beautiful, and I always pictured Surf and Fries on the beaches in California and Santa Monica Pier and things like that. Yeah. But it got so complicated so soon that it's okay, maybe some other time. Hopefully we will bring the original version of Surf and Fries, for example, to Florida and then the other states. So we'll see how that goes, but we need to be really 100% sure that it will work for, first of all, for the franchisees, and then also for us as a franchisor.
Yeah. So the process of disclosure in franchising, that has to be very foreign to a franchisor coming out of Croatia, where you don't have franchise regulation like this. You can speak freely about the franchise opportunity. It's going to cost you $20,000. You'll earn the $20,000 back within 7 months or a year and a half, whatever the numbers are. You speak freely about all of that. Suddenly you come to what we consider the greatest country in the world, certainly for commerce, certainly for franchising. I mean, we really know how to do it here. We've done it right for a long, long time, and we do teach the world about franchising. But wow, all these regulations. What's wrong with these Americans? How do you come to grips with, all right, we're going to have to bite the bullet. We're going to spend more just for the FDD than what we get for a franchise unit. Although in the United States, you're not going to open for $20,000 in the United States. Maybe a cart could be under $50,000, and that's in the United States. That's a very popular price. People would love an opportunity like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, for us, it was a big surprise. I remember in 2015 on the IFA event when I was there, and I obviously brought with me our franchise brochures, and in the franchise brochure, it said like fast return on investment and, normal things that you would communicate. Wow. Somebody taking our brochure and they were like, oh, you cannot say this. And I was like, what do you mean?
You can't say these things.
Somebody can sue you. And I'm like, sue me for what? So it was a bit of a shock and interesting. And then I started learning, okay, why do you guys do that? And then they told me, well, the people lost their money on buying franchise. I said, okay, but you still have to use your head. And even with the FDD, you can kind of go around from what I learned, even with attorney and how do you present data and everything else. So honestly, I'll be honest with you, as somebody, I don't want to criticize or anything, but for somebody from outside of the US, for me, it doesn't make a lot of sense on regulating things because I'm not sure what the end result is and who actually benefits from that. That's how I see it.
Well, yes, that's a good point. But at the same time, is there another country in the world as advanced in franchising as the United States of America? I don't think so. And yet Absolutely. We are highly regulated. And I just did an interview with a franchisee advocate several days ago who said, and we don't have enough regulation. We need to do more to protect the investor. So whether it's a matter of franchisors in Croatia or are just honest, and some franchisors in the United States exist to take advantage of people, and particularly if they have no protection. In many ways, the FDD is, everyone should embrace that, because before I invest $1 in the business, I can know a great deal about everything that's expected of me. If not all the fees, most of the fees. You're supposed to know all the fees. If there's an earnings claim in item 19, that's the only optional item of the FDD. The list of existing and past franchisees with their name and their address and their phone number. Now, if you're a past franchisee, having their name and their phone number is of no value anymore because they haven't been a franchisee for 2 years. You're probably not going to find them. But it would be interesting to find them and ask them, why are you no longer a franchisee? But you can do that with the existing franchisees. Call them, visit them. In fact, when people ask for my advice about buying a franchise, and I say, first thing, you've got to qualify for, it costs you no money, but you've got to qualify for the FDD. Get the FDD. Turn to item 20. Start calling existing, and if you can find past franchisees, call them, interview them. Find out if you've got the right personality for this franchise. Find out if you're even cut out for franchising, period. And so much work that can be done for yourself because of that tool, the FDD, which other countries mostly do not have, at least not to our extent. So there are good things about it because this does protect people. Not only the franchisee, it protects the franchisor as well, because you can't say as a franchisee, oh, you didn't tell me that I owe $10,000 for whatever. Oh, yeah, we did. Otherwise, we're going to be slapped. We're going to be slapped with a lawsuit if we don't disclose fees to you. So there's a lot of good in the FDD, but yes, it is expensive. And it's an eye-opener for someone like you who's coming out of Croatia.
Yeah, fully agree with you. I mean, just like with anything, there's always a good side and a bad side. That's how things are, generally speaking.
Yeah.
And definitely FDD helps a lot of people, especially the franchisees and so on. So yeah, I mean, I don't mind FDD. Don't get me wrong. It's just like, when you're not used to it, you get a bit shocked when when you start hearing things. Oh, you need that, and so on. I mean, that's fine once you adapt to what the market wants.
An interesting story that I have: in the late 1980s, IFA sponsored trade missions to other countries. So 10 American franchisors like Fred DeLuca of Subway, Domino's Pizza, I Can't Believe It's Yogurt, they were on these trade missions. And I was part of the trade mission representing IFA. I was the ambassador of franchising. So I would go into Zagreb and meet with media, teach them about franchising, and get them to interview these American franchisors who wanted to sell a master license to Eastern Europe or whatever it might be. And we never went to Croatia. We went to Tokyo. We went to Paris and France and lots of major cities and where there was a lot of development to be done. So we were in Switzerland, and I Can't Believe It's Yogurt was one of the 10 companies. And the number one franchise consultant in Switzerland, he and I had dinner. And after dinner, he said to me, I want to tell you, I don't want to be critical, but I want to tell you there's one company that you have in the trade mission that will not succeed here. And I said, really? What is that? And he said, that I Can't Believe It's Yogurt. And I said, why? And he said, well, again, I don't want to be offensive or criticize, but we here in Switzerland, we're not used to buying food and walking around and licking it or eating it. And I said, interesting. Just at that time, we walked out of the restaurant, and down the way was a McDonald's. I could see the McDonald's golden arches. And I said to him, hey, how long has McDonald's been here? And he said, about 5 years. And I said, how's that working? He says, very, very popular. If we go down there now, 11 o'clock at night, there will be a line out the door trying to buy McDonald's. I said, very interesting. And 5 years ago, before McDonald's, how many hamburgers did you consume in Switzerland? And he said, none. We didn't know what a hamburger was, except when we traveled to the United States. So I said, okay, I'll be back in 5 years, and you're going to be walking around, sorry to say, licking a yogurt cone, a frozen yogurt cone. Sorry to impose our bad habits or our bad manners on you here in beautiful Switzerland. But that's what happens with franchising. And now your concept, there's no holding back. People everywhere, in Europe included, are going to walk around eating your fries and enjoying them. Absolutely. So, Andy, this has been really enjoyable. I hope at some point might see you get involved with Zagreb School of Economics and Management there in Zagreb, ZIZEM, and what might be the beginning of a franchise program. That could be very profitable for you, other franchisors, and certainly would benefit those students who are going to come out of the program. And beyond that, I would say, Andy, establish your U.S. headquarters in West Palm Beach, Florida, or Jupiter, Florida, and be affiliated with the Titus Center for franchising, because I graduate students every year who have a concentration in franchising, who would love to work with you, and you would love to mentor them. Plus, it's the networking. We have the largest networking group of franchise executives in the South here at the Titus Center for Franchising. And great opportunities for you to learn there, as well as to do business with other board members, lawyers, marketing people, other franchisors. The franchise consultant groups are part of the Titus Center. So we have a lot to offer you here. And if you come this way, we certainly will open the doors wide to welcome you. And I know that your surf and fries will be very popular, particularly in certain states, the sunshine states of America, for sure.
Thanks for tuning in to the Franchise Hot Seat Podcast with Dr. John P. Hayes. Tune in next time for more conversation around all things franchising.